Babaji bashes my addiction affliction, right? And we are kind of halfway through about, it looks like. Does anybody have anything that you thought about over the week or that you didn't get a chance to say last week about this first part of the what I read? It's hard to remember. So much happens in a week. I know. It's kind of like, what do we talk about again? Wait, hold on. What? Oh, okay. Sometimes the parts in the gold letters was the kind of, at least there's something on each page. Like I felt a rush of feelings come over me. I felt humiliated, angry, and ashamed. Didn't know what else to say, so we walked in silence. Reclaiming my love affair with chai was over. From this day forward, only made my raging caffeine withdrawal headache that much worse. His lack of response made me feel invalidated, dismissed, and like my accomplishment was no big deal. Wow, he's not willing to negotiate at this point at all. He would not even budge a little bit. So this is when I was, remember the story that I was teaching, and I had the PowerPoint all planned out, and we were talking about this feeling of betrayal, right, and what that actually meant. So does anybody have anything? Or should I start reading again? Read? Okay.
No, I don't have anything. That's why I was saying she can read.
No, sorry. It's about this, how the mind rationalizes the shortcoming or whatever. In this case, it's the addiction to caffeine, but I had a similar experience, not with caffeine, but other things that I was doing wrongly, and how automatically the mind starts to support that. Programs, basically. And I say, oh, yeah, but it's not that bad in the end. It's, what is there? Trying to basically find a good reason to not to give up. So this was kind of, it came up when you said, yeah, the mind works to rationalize our addictions. So I had the same.
Works to rationalize anything that we're doing.
So
that's the, the part of the mind that does that?
The part of the mind who does that? Because the Buddha is the one who is controlling and give the good reasons. But what kind of part of the mind is doing that?
It's okay. I was just wondering if you know.
No, I don't know.
Different class. Yeah. Ladli, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I had the same point as Kamala, and then what is really touching in the story is that it's out of love that you stop. Finally. And yeah, I find that when you, otherwise, I mean, it was so nice that Babaji, I mean, it just insisted on this, and he kept also, being with you even though you kept drinking the chai, and he tried to told you for your own good, And so, yeah, I mean, the power of love, finally, when we want to stop something out of love, I mean, it was good for you, of course, but also to show your love for him. Then you made it. With his help, of course, I imagine. But then we can think of some other type of addiction I don't know, it seems to me that it's a really strong power, and we can reach anything. Yeah. Even no matter how hard or how long it takes, it's possible to make it. When you feel you are loved and you have the support of a person who sees that it's not good for you, you're going to ruin your health or your spiritual. You cannot. You have to get rid of this if you want to reach your goal.
Yeah.
And then for me, I find that we say that it's hard to accept when someone spot the the stain we have on the t-shirt. But finally, that can be the biggest gift someone can give us in a certain way. And when it's done, not in a harsh way, but in a loving way, then I think then we can see and we can work on it.
Yeah. It's very hard. It goes back to trust. It's very hard to trust when it doesn't feel right for you. And he can see something that you're not seeing, That was very hard to do for me. To just drop it and listen to what he was saying. I said, okay. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody online want to say something? Okay. Bila.
So in the end of the class, I heard you say that 50% of success in therapy is to go to be able to see what did I do to cause my problem. Right? So is this from your observation, is it really always like that or almost always like that? Is it always that that I have also a significant share in my problem?
Let's reverse the thing. Imagine if it wasn't like that. Can you give an example of how, 50%, I'm being very generous by saying it's more like 90% of the success is from, because why would you come to therapy if you could see your problem? And you could work on it. You have to see it very clearly. And once you realize, I did that thing. I'm creating, even if you didn't create something in someone else, it's your mind that has the problem, right? So if you realize it, most of the time when we realize it's us and we have a problem. For example, let's go really back to the basics. You're hungry. It's not Nyan Shri's fault that I'm hungry. I'm hungry. My stomach's empty. So what am I going to do? Am I going to go to a therapist and talk about it? Or ask Nyan Shri, come, let's meet and can you feed me? No, I'm going to, unless I'm a baby, but otherwise, if I've done my inner child work, even physically, I'll get my own food. So maybe the therapist, you'd go for a short time and the therapist would tell you the tools if you didn't know how to eat. But most of the work of the therapist is helping you see your part of this is your part. Which is called, in my world, samskaras. These are your samskaras, and this is how your ahankara is blocking you from seeing them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It doesn't mean the other person's not a jerk, or the situation sucks, or someone you love died even. That's all true. But how you perceive, meaning how you think about it, and how you feel about it, that has to do with why people come to therapy. It's distorted thinking. Usually coming from how a 5-year-old would see it, or a 3-year-old, maybe an infant, depending on when the original trauma happened to make that samskara.
And this means that then the healing has occurred when that 5-year-old, 3-year-old samskara is no longer guiding my...
Yes, driving, compelling you to act in that way. So when your 5-year-old or 3-year-old is seen and validated, because oftentimes when I'm in therapy and I finally get the person to the point of talking to their inner child, they start, going here and going there, and I'm trying to chase after the wind, And then it's very uncomfortable because they're not used to being seen. And when if they stick with me and stay on it, sometimes I just burst into tears finally, because they're finally seen. It feels so good. And if they get used to that habit of I actually do care, I actually do want to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear how you feel, that's how the new samskara gets made. And when that finally gets like a regular pattern for you, then the inner child starts growing up. That's the healing. But through the growing up process, that's why when I'm in there nurturing with you, I'm giving you new thoughts to see, can you even accept that that's true about you? Something positive, that somebody actually cares, And that's when that other wire gets tripped up, where all that junk or garbage that mom did or didn't do to you gets then projected onto me. It's like an invisible I think is it coming back? It's back, at least for now. Huh? Mosquito. So for those of you online, I think the electricity went out, so we're just getting, I think, a backup or something. To make sure. Can you hear me, Isabel, now or no? She can hear? Okay. But we don't have, it could happen again, you're saying there's no backup for it, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, we'll hedge our bets. Okay, so where did I leave off? So basically that's samskara. So the inner child has to grow up through the therapist working with you and you learning how to get those skills to acknowledge your inner child's feelings, to nurture those feelings, to make them feel seen and heard in the ways they haven't been as a kid. And then once you do it, then you don't really need a therapist unless you get into some area where it's after a few years usually, where it's a samskara that you have no idea, but you're really triggered by this situation or by this person, and it's uncharted waters. So then you can work with that same therapist or a different one and go in and find out what's this one I didn't know. Or sometimes you think, I'm good, my samskara it's gone. But then you get another situation and you're like, oh shoot, it's that thing again. I thought I worked on my abandonment issues or whatever the thing was, So then that means you can go deeper into therapy or just get a refresher with your therapist for a while. That's why I always say the indicator is if you're feeling peaceful in all situations, then your samskaras are probably pretty well digested, But that's why I'm saying, but if you come in and you don't realize what you're doing to create your own suffering, which sounds like you're blaming the victim, I'm not. That when you see it that way, it means that you are seeing it from how a 5-year-old is. The 5-year-old, it is blaming a 5-year-old. If you say that you created your own suffering to a 5-year-old or to a 10-year-old, that's not true. They didn't create their own suffering. It was done to them. But once we cross over to our adult life, 18 and older, you're not creating, now we have to say whatever you're carrying with you, it's your responsibility. You've graduated, you've left home, a lot of people, or you're working or you're in school as an adult. Then whatever was done to you, it's your job to heal that. So that's where it also gets confusing. It's like, why are you blaming the victim? I'm like, well, I'm not blaming you now. I'm just saying, what is your option? And a lot of people say, the option is, I want to talk to mom. I want to explain what she did. I want her to see it, and I want her to apologize. Okay, great. It's not going to change the samskara. Okay, I want to explain it to my father. Okay, you can do it. Usually it doesn't go so well because they're not in deep therapy trying to work on it. They don't have insight, which is why you don't have insight. So instead of you trying to make them get insight, the best would be that you get the insight and take care of yourself. And then they won't bother you so much. Being around them and seeing them, you're just like, that's how they are, Does that make sense? Okay. Isabel, did you want to say something? I saw you were patiently waiting for a long time with your hand up.
This is so amazing to see the simplicity of it if one is willing to look. And just so I get a little overwhelmed at times.
Oh.
So I just thank you. And Babaji.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think it can be overwhelming, especially when it hits something within you. And actually the truth is that love is very simple. But when we were born, just think of a cute little baby that you saw, Babies are cute and they're simple. They're very simple. They don't need much and they give a lot of love because they're just like there, So that's actually what we need to do for ourselves. But love doesn't seem simple because of all the complications our parents made towards us, So we got, imagine like a can of soda and it has all these dents in it. So we have to go in on the inside and push the dents out and try to become simple and smooth again because it's actually, love is not complicated. It's just that we've got so hurt by our primary caregivers. You know, so what I'm saying, it seems very simple, but when you try to apply it, as you know, Isabel, and you guys know, in session, it's hard. It doesn't seem so simple when it's being done to you, because we have all our defenses up, right? And we can't see things straight, and why the heck would you trust your therapist when your primary caregivers hurt you so badly? So all these other samskaras come up. It's very tricky work, even though the actual concepts are simple and clear, and like, oh, I can do that. Just talk to my inner child, you know? Just give her some love. But she doesn't trust love worth a damn. Or he. Megan, did you want to say something? No? Okay, I just saw your camera come on. Anyone else? Anything else? Or should we read some more? Read? Oh, you have something coming? Okay.
It seems that the trust is very crucial point in the whole scenario, and so the lack of trust is also kind of ingrained samskara. So, and basically is going against the flow for our own growing. So, and even the projection and lack of trust, these two things, I try to understand how much they can really prevent us to heal and to grow.
Yeah.
And so how to somehow try to find a way not to be blocked so much. Because, for example, not in my case, but I didn't have trust in my mom. Because I never knew when she's going to freak out or to shout or to lose her balance. So for me, trusting is really like a difficult field to...
Difficult. Dangerous.
Dangerous field. I would like to, but then something is pulling me back. You know, it's like this, or like this, or like that. So I observe it in myself, but so if you have some ideas or some advice to give, how to become more...
Trust, open. So trust is based on what happened to us the first year of our life. That is when the attachment was made to mother or not made. And for most people, we have what's called an insecure attachment style. So, you know, we probably don't have memories of that. We probably have memories of older, thinking of ways mom wasn't there, but most likely if she's like that when you were 5 or 7 or 10, she was like that when you were born. So that first year of life, and you can tell by how you're reacting now, that's your attachment style. You can take surveys and see, you can watch videos and see, but there's different types of insecure attachment styles. So if mom didn't do all that attunement that needed to happen and seeing your basic needs, even sometimes physical needs, sometimes emotional needs, you know, if she wasn't attuning to you, even with eye contact, that's a really important one. Even the way you operate with people, oftentimes we don't even look at people. That's because mom didn't look at us. We don't face people square on. We don't like to become intimate with people emotionally. It's scary for us. So all that is going back to the first year of life. And even in the womb, what if your mom didn't want you, but she still had you? What if your mom, there's so many things, if she wasn't emotionally sattvic. So there's all these things that we get the message that we're not lovable and that we're not loved and that we're not, that main person who is required for our survival is not there for us. So this is a very difficult work to go back to that first year of life, you know. So what I usually say is whatever's triggering you now, you know, the main trigger would be that you're feeling rejected, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling disconnected, you're feeling any of those types of feeling, lonely, some emptiness. That's all from, you know, it's not your fault. That's the main thing to know now. It's not your fault. It's from that first year of life when you didn't get that attachment made. So first I would try to understand it intellectually. Again, maybe you already have, but watch some videos on attachment style. What does a secure attachment look like? We have e-courses on it too. Hearing Babaji speak about it's so helpful, you know, attachment styles. And then learn about it and then start thinking, just look, okay, here's what it looks like to be securely attached. Do I have all those things? And then just start picking 1 and 2 or 3, just one of them even, and start trying to nurture your inner child and making her feel that she's seen. Because it's a little tricky when other people try to do it with you. For example, when I try to do it with my clients, most people are not securely attached. So when I try to make one with them, that's a therapist's job. But it's very, very scary for the inner child. And so all of her defenses come up, or his. And they don't trust that, And so the therapist is trying to do what she can to heal you instead of saying, I'm going to try to make a secure attachment with you right now. I mean, I'm not saying all the method to my madness, but I know the goal, to try to get you healed and get you out of therapy. So the things I'm doing, but usually it trips up all those big samskaras. And then, if you had a mother who was unstable, you're going to think I'm unstable. If you had a mother who's angry, you're going to think I'm angry. If you had a mother, and not just me, any therapist who's doing that deep work with you, going into samskara land, that's why I say it's very dangerous when the therapist goes in there with you, because the main person who you're trusting to take you through, you're feeling like is doing what your mom did to you. And I'm not saying there are some therapists who maybe are doing that, but I'm just saying in general they're not. They're trained to go in there, but it feels like you have a blindfold on and you don't know which end is up. And why would you trust this person? Because you didn't trust, your mom broke your trust a long time ago. And then you'll start looking for anything that therapist is doing, like you see how I know, she's so untrustworthy because of this or that. Whatever your working theory is about mom, you will put that onto the therapist. That's the projection, So it's very tricky to get out of.
So then basically, when we don't trust, we try to rationalize and also find a good reason why we should not trust.
Back to rationalization, the first thing you brought up. Yes, when we don't trust, the ahankara, that's the ahankara, and it uses buddhi. Buddhi is supposed to say, ahankara, stop it, I see what you're doing, but instead, buddhi defaults and goes, oh, okay, ahankara, that's because buddhi is not very strong. That's why last year, what did I first start off? First let's see what our senses are, then sattva size. I'm always trying to say, sattva size your senses, do your best to get into sattva, so buddhi can be strong and you can catch all this other circus going on, with the ahankara playing its tricks and manas getting all emotional and samskaras flaring up and you don't even know. So the ahankara likes to rationalize whatever it is, including the fact that you're going to a therapist and paying them to help you. But you're seeing them as a bad person, as someone you can't trust. And meanwhile, at the same time, you're calling up mom. Hey mom, I love you, miss you. That's what I'm saying. The wires get crossed. And the person who was the original abuser, that person you're still hanging out with. Or if mom's not even in your life, it's somebody in your orbit of people who you think is so good and you're coming closer to that one. And then the one who's trying to help you, you dump all the garbage on them. This is why some scars are so tricky. To get out of. But that's why I'm talking about it, to kind of normalize it so you can start seeing, okay, nothing to feel bad about, but when therapy feels frustrating, these are some of the reasons why. It's very disorienting. I mean, I've never, thank God, been in a plane where it goes upside down. Like, have you heard of that? Sometimes when you can't tell, when it's too foggy, the pilot can't tell if it's, I don't know if it's a personal plane. I don't think it's probably a big jetliner, but I've heard of these stories where planes crash because they aren't able to tell how to go up or down, which way's up or which way's down. Because both my grandfathers were pilots, so I've heard lots of stories about that. And so I don't know exactly what that's called when that happens, but the point is that's how I feel as a therapist trying to guide the client into samskara land. They don't know which end is up or down, and I'm trying to guide them. But they're usually kicking and screaming the whole way and trying to do anything to get out. And when I guide them too directly, like, hold on, stay here, let's go in, then they go the other way or they freak out So it's a very delicate art to take somebody into the samskara, to the very thing that they are so afraid of and so hurt by, And then they have to trust somebody to go in and heal. It's a delicate, they don't know which end is up, and I'm like, okay. So that's why usually I don't do it in session one. I try to build a relationship, make sure that we can, they start trusting, they start getting some success. It's helpful with any client, any therapist you're working with to try to think about the good things that therapist has done for you. If they don't have goodwill for you, they're not going to be a good therapist. They have to have a genuine, unconditional, positive regard for you. If they don't have that, how can they help you? But even to just think because I've told some of my clients, write the qualities of your mother on one side and your therapist on the other, and try to see the difference. When you're not triggered, try to see the difference, because if you don't consciously do it, you're just going to project all the mom stuff and think that they're the same. So actually look and try to see the difference between those two. So then you can go more consciously into your therapy even and say, I trust this person. I could choose any person in the world. I chose this one. So I'm going to let them take my hand and bring me. And if you don't trust your therapist, talk about it with your therapist, or get a new therapist if you're not comfortable talking, because you have to work through that part of it. You can't circumvent that you don't trust your therapist, because you're just putting a block up for yourself. You know, but it's a normal part of the therapy process, but you should talk about it and say, I don't trust you because of this, or I feel uncomfortable because of this, and talk through that. That's how you can get through that healing. Anything else? And when you get out of it and the samskaras get cleared and you have clear eyesight, it's like, oh my God. When you look back at the wreckage, you're just like, oh, I came from that. Oh my God, oh my God. It feels like such a relief, actually. When you're just standing on the top of the mountain looking down and going, thank God I'm out of that, you know. It's such, you just feel so peaceful and so relieved, and then you can see where you were and how much you had to fight to get out of that. But it's possible, and it will happen as long as you hang in there. At least that's been my experience as a therapist and as a client. Okay. Anything else, or should we read? Read? Okay. So 211. I'll just read the last gold at 210. It said, his lack of response made me feel invalidated, dismissed, and like my accomplishment was no big deal. In a way, it also gave me the strength to make my next request. Because if he didn't care, and he was so indifferent to the fact that I'd stopped drinking caffeine, I reasoned that maybe he would also be indifferent to me starting it back up again. However, since I am about to start my PhD program, I think it is necessary to drink caffeine for the next few years to get through the grueling school demands. And then, after I complete my PhD, I will stop caffeine for good, I pleaded. Babaji said, no, you do not need caffeine to get your PhD. That is just another rationalization so you can keep drinking it. If you are tired, then sleep. Listen to your body. What? I stammered, shocked by Babaji's no-nonsense answer. It seemed like he hadn't even considered the impact of his words. I felt overwhelmed by the thought of all the late nights ahead of me, working away without the caffeine fix to help me through. You do not need caffeine in your life. It only makes your mind unstable and keeps you hankering for something that you have no need of, Babaji retorted. Wow, he's not willing to negotiate on this point at all. He would not even budge a little bit. But I could not let it go that easily. Like a desperate beggar, I tried to bargain with Babaji. Can I at least have caffeine sometimes? Like when I have big term papers due and I have to stay up all night writing them? No, he flatly responded. Well, what about the all-night residencies that are required? How am I supposed to stay awake all night for 4 nights in a row after working all day, I pleaded. Babaji simply stated, sleep during the day. Oh my God, I thought, this is too much. I just can't do it. But what I said to Babaji was a less than enthusiastic, okay. And what actually happened was nothing short of a miracle. As I write this, it has been 10 months since that day when Babaji told me no more caffeine. I endured the sleepless nights of the online PhD residency course without caffeine, not a drop. I spent countless nights staying awake until 2 a.m. or later doing homework, only to wake up early so I could make it to the morning kirtan at the ashram. I'm now able to live on very few hours of sleep, caffeine-free. All I can say is that I was addicted to caffeine for over 20 years, and by Babaji's grace, that addiction has been broken. Despite my countless previous attempts to break it myself, somehow, some way, I always seem to come back to my warm, creamy, sweet chai. And to be honest, in full disclosure, there have been a few times over the course of my PhD program when I did actually break down and have a chai, but not because of a craving for it. As impossible as it may seem, after 8 months of no chai, I had lost the craving altogether. What drove me to drink the chai on one of these occasions was a different reason. I actually had a migraine headache. You know that kind when your head is pounding and you feel so nauseous like you're going to vomit? It was that kind. Of course, Babaji and I had planned to work together that day of all days. And when I canceled our meeting because of my migraine, he told me to take rest. So I slept for a few hours, hoping to sleep it off. But when I woke at 5 p.m., it was still there, raging away. Even my eyes hurt with the unabated pressure of the migraine. Knowing from past experience that caffeine helped to relieve my migraines, I thought maybe I should have a chai. But this time it was not for the pleasure of my taste buds, but for the relief of my pain. However, I still doubted myself somewhat, for Babaji had helped me because actually aware of all the ways in which my mind rationalized my unhealthy behaviors. So when it came to having a chai, I wasn't so sure if it was a good idea, because my mind had convinced me it was good for me so many times in the past when it really wasn't. The only thing I knew for certain was that I was in pain, a lot of pain, and I had 4 hours of client consultations starting soon that I didn't want to cancel. So I did the only thing I could think of doing. I went to the kitchen and I ordered a large chai from Dada, the gracious ashram chef. Always aiming to please, he agreed to make my chai right away with a big smile on his face. Because I had promised Babaji I wouldn't drink chai anymore, even in the extreme cases of pulling all-nighters for my PhD, and since I was doubtful of my mind's hidden desire to enjoy the chai, I checked with Babaji. Sitting in my room with the thermos full of hot, steamy, creamy chai, taunting me with its undeniably seductive aroma wafting up into the air, reminding me of all of our lovely times together, I stopped. I did not put the chai to my mouth. I didn't even take one sip. Instead, I called Babaji. I told him that after practically sleeping the whole day, my migraine had not subsided. I explained how I had 4 client sessions scheduled starting in 1 hour, and how I was sitting in the dark because the light on made me feel like I was going to vomit. I told him I had a chai in front of me, but I hadn't drank it yet because I had made a vow to him to not drink caffeine. Babaji empathetically responded, "Yes, take the chai. In this case, you're drinking the chai as medicine for your migraine, no problem. That is different from drinking chai or coffee every single day. Being addicted to something means you're dependent on that and you lose your freedom. It's as if you are being used by the object to which you're addicted, such as chai. When you need the chai every single day, then it is your attachment or addiction. But when you're not addicted, you can use chai to your advantage because you're not controlled by it. Spirituality means to become free from your attachments, from bondage, ignorance, and suffering." Babaji concluded by sharing, all suffering comes from attachments and addictions. We can use anything in the service of Krishna if we are not attached. We are not dry renunciates, but we are not the slave of objects. We're not the slaves of objects. I thanked Babaji and felt relieved that I could use the chai as medicine. As I slowly, in a meditative mood, put the mug to my lips, I felt my old familiar friend chai's warm, creamy sweetness engulf my mouth. I swallowed it down, but immediately felt disappointed. The chai didn't have the same appeal. It actually wasn't that tasty. Had my taste changed? Or maybe this was just a bad chai. I took another sip, but it wasn't as enjoyable as it used to be. After a few more sips, I put the mug down, half finished. A first for me. What was going on here? Had I really lost my taste for chai? I couldn't bring myself to drink anymore. I let the chai get cold and then dumped it down the drain. Fortunately, my migraine subsided and I met with my clients over the next 4 hours with ease. The next day when I saw Babaji after the morning kirtan, he asked me how my migraine was. I shared with him that it had subsided by drinking the chai, but that I only drank half of it and I didn't enjoy it like I used to. Babaji smiled peacefully. His kind eyes radiated love as he shared in his usual way with as few words as possible. Good. Watching Babaji walk away, I felt grateful, happy, peaceful, and grounded. In that moment, it dawned on me that I had found a different kind of sweetness, far superior to chai. My reflections are, I can't help but wonder what it would have been like for me if I had taken Babaji's words seriously the very first time he mentioned to me about not drinking caffeine. Sure, it was a very indirect way in which he relayed the message to me, telling me the story of Prabhupada making his wife choose him or the tea. So I could have easily just done what I did, rationalize it away that Babaji was just joking. But if I was truly wanting to change for the better, I would have understood that story he told was for me. And without any resistance, I would have stopped drinking caffeinated beverages right then and there. Perhaps if I had sincerely wanted to change, then this would have been an easy move for me. Maybe then I could have seen that Babaji was like a good friend who was helping me to cut out what was holding me back. I wonder what that would have been like for me to just accept his teachings instead of trying to resist. and convince him of my way. I wonder how much more I could have learned from him in those precious moments together if I had not spent so much time fighting the process of accepting my Guru's guidance. My lesson learned is to take my Guru's indirect words and behaviors to heart and make immediate changes without delay. So before I open it up, I want to say that since then, I've been drinking caffeine, believe it or not. Because I don't want to be a hypocrite, I have to make a full disclosure. And so there's another probably whole chapter I could write on this. But basically, that's what I alluded to last week, is when I was going through all this perimenopause and this menopause, I felt like I had like cotton in my brain, basically. And it was very hard for me to focus and concentrate, even if I slept. But then I was having hot flashes, I wasn't getting a good sleep and all that. And so I started going to see different doctors and ask, and a few different doctors told me I should start drinking caffeine again. And I was like, Babaji, this Ayurvedic doctor's telling me to drink coffee. She's telling me to have a coffee in the morning and have a chai in the afternoon. I'm not bringing it up, but she's telling me it's good for the mind, it's good for concentration. What do you think? And he's like, okay, if the doctor says it, try it. So I did. I tried it, and I'm like, I feel better. So that's where we're at right now. I drink caffeine, but I said, but then why were you being so hard on me? Like, whatever, 6 years ago when you were like really hammering me, now you're just like, yeah, do it. And he said, because it was not about you drinking the caffeine or not. After all that. I'm like, what? That wasn't the issue. It was your attitude about it. And he goes, if you need it and if it helps your mind feel focused, take it. After all that, and I'm like, what? So that whole battle was about really, really just trying to follow his instruction and not fight him and not try to convince him and all that. I didn't understand that until recently, until I started having all these menopausal issues and I really couldn't even focus. I could not concentrate. So that's where we're at right now, and it's a very interesting experience to understand that it wasn't actually about the coffee. It wasn't about the caffeine. It was my attitude about it, more than the addiction, but my attitude about not listening to him, trying to convince him, and also just being honest with him. I'm like, when I take it, I'm clear and I can concentrate, and that's what my brain needs. Maybe one day we'll find something else. And he's like, don't worry about it. If that's what you need, just do it. I mean, I've been on this path for 10 years, and so I think he was in the first few years of understanding how to have a relationship with the Guru. So I think he also was teaching me through that process about my ahankara, about my, all the stuff that I was doing in that chapter. And like I said, when that doctor said it was so simple. She's like, that's what you need. And in Ayurveda, everybody has their own different situation going on, and if that's what works for you. I mean, I'm not drinking 10 cups a day, So I just wanted to say it because I don't want to act like that's where the story ended, especially for those of you who know me. You see, sometimes I'm drinking a coffee, and I don't feel bad about it. It's just what I need. And that's also, I want to give everyone the message that what you need is not bad. Because if I wasn't being honest with Babaji, my Guru, how can I have a real relationship with him? So I had to be just honest. I'm trying to follow your instruction, but it's not working for me. I'm seriously, like, my brain feels like, I can't describe it, but when I've heard other women who are in menopause talk about it, I feel like I have cotton in my brain. It's what they call brain fog, actually. I just feel like I have brain fog, and so that's what I'm using to feel clear at this point. Things may change because I'm also seeing a doctor and getting help with my hormones and stuff, and maybe it'll change, but that's the current situation. And that's Babaji's grace, just saying, okay, you understood the last lesson. And now, actually, in the class we take at night with him here, he always saying it's about the bhav. It's not about the caffeine, or it's not about the apple. It's about your mood around it. And so to me, I'm like, oh, the caffeine was like the apple, and the mood towards the apple was actually the issue, my attitude about it. So that's the end of this very interesting chapter. One day, if I write another version, I will add that to it, and who knows where I'll be the next time. But it's also very humbling to in a way, I can, if I'm being negative about myself, I can feel defeated by caffeine, because I'm like, it's not that I want to do it, but and also I've been doing it a long time, so my mind is used to that. And then at the worst time in my life, which is when you lose all those hormones that are protective for the brain functioning, when you lose estrogen, which goes to basically zero, and progesterone, your brain just goes wacky. So that's what's happened for me. And caffeine is the one thing that I could keep constant, so I am putting those other hormones back in. I'm trying, but that's part of, aging and being a woman. So I'm just trying my best to do what I need to function every day. Yeah. So, would anybody like to share?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and to see the honesty, and also it's very inspiring, both things, your honesty as a disciple and also as a person who has clear what you need, and you need this for functioning properly in your service.
Yeah.
So, and the nice counterpart is Babaji, who is completely open
Yeah.
to help us in
Yeah.
any way possible.
Yes.
Without making us feeling bad.
No
or
shame, no guilt.
No shame, no
yeah,
guilt. And
yeah.
this is very great,
Yeah.
and I think it's very unique.
Very unique.
Then Babaji is like,
Yeah.
so
And
kind
I told him
open.
too, I said, Babaji, I have this book club coming up, and this is not really how the chapter ended, and the last thing I want to be is a hypocrite. This whole book is about me being honest about all this stuff, and to show the relationship between the disciple and the guru, and I don't want to leave it like in this glorified manner that I got over the caffeine. I did for a few years, whatever, but I'm back to it now. And I said, but that part, he said, fine. And I said, but I want to say the conversation we had, is it okay that I say that you said it? Because then I don't want it to be the wrong message to it doesn't mean that's his message to all of his disciples. That was what was going on for me, and he saw where my mind was at before versus now. So I said, is it okay to say the part you told me to? He said, yes. So he's so
Thank you.
attuned to each person
Yeah.
and what their needs are. And
Thank you
it's
for
so touching,
sharing,
yeah.
because this is also shows how gracious,
Yeah.
to be, that we are protected, because
Yeah.
he can understand
Yeah.
fully our
Very,
personal
very
needs,
compassionate.
and
Yeah.
very compassionate, not judgmental,
Yeah.
and very supportive.
Yeah.
And it's really very inspiring to see
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You add this is something more than the glory to have conquered something
Yeah.
with his help.
Yeah.
Is even more.
It's so interesting, because it was such a battle for so long, and I was just dying, and it was so hard, but actually my mind about it was more about the hankara than, I need it, and let me tell you why. And when I finally was just like, listen, I'm basically crashed and burned. I feel like I have cotton in my brain. I can't think straight. The Ayurvedic doctor's recommending coffee and chai, and he's like, yeah, just no problem. Because it wasn't about that anyway. I'm like, what? I wish my hankara had been more humble about it during the PhD. So we could have had that conversation then, but I was still in a different mood. So it was really interesting healing process for me, the whole thing, to come to that point, to have that conversation with him. Because before I was convincing him, and this time I wasn't convincing him, I was just explaining, here's how I feel, which is very different. And, it's much more of a flattened state than being like, no, I need it because of this, I need it because of that, I wasn't in the fighting mood. I was just like, I don't feel well when I don't have that.
So then basically this rationalizing the fight
Yeah.
of the, I need because of
Yeah,
this and
yeah.
because
Then
of
it's fine. Instead of just being
More
like,
like a-
here's, what would you suggest I do? I'm at a healing center. This is what the doctor's saying. I'm not doing well. And then he said, okay. But I wasn't fighting it. I was also open. If he said no, I would have not done it. If he said no, that's why when I ordered that chai from Dada, I just had it sitting there and I didn't have it, even though I wanted to have it because I knew it was going to help with the migraine, but I didn't do it.
very wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Questions, comments, reflection? Go ahead, Kamala.
So then basically it's the anchor which prevents us to accept even the word of Guru and bring immediately the change, because in your lesson learned you say that what if I could really immediately change without delay. So basically, we are responsible. We ourselves are responsible.
That's what it always goes back
for
to,
that.
you know. And also this idea of like, before I was fighting, my Hankar was making me fight to convince him. And then I wasn't fighting when I came again. I was more just like, this is my situation. What do you think, you know? Here's one suggestion this doctor's making. What do you think? It was very different, the whole energy around it, you know? Because I had already given it up. I wasn't fighting for something that I was attached to. I had already given it up. I was living my life without it. But I wasn't functioning very well. So I said, I mean, I can continue like this, but I'm not doing very well. And when I have it, it makes my mind clear and I can focus again. So it was a different thing. Because when somebody takes something away from you that you like, you will fight for that, fight, you know. So I was trying every angle, and I was also being, you know, kind of ignoring what he said. Drinking, and his face basically like, cheers, you know. And so it was a very different attitude this time. I had given it up, I had understood, and I did feel, you know, triumphant in a way that I'd given it up, like great, you know. But my mind was just getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, those hormones are going way down, and it doesn't really go back to how. That's why I'm saying, but this perimenopause is no joke. If anybody's in that, usually it starts in the young 40s if you haven't had other things, surgeries or anything, you know. Those hormones start going down and down and down. And it affects everybody differently. So that's also what was happening. I didn't know it, you know. And so by the time, now I'm about to be 53. So all these years it was just going worse and worse and worse. That's also part of why I was getting the migraine. All that was happening, and I didn't know it. And I'm in the middle of a PhD, so it was very, very hard to, at that time, pull the caffeine away. Out of all times, you know.
The change in your attitude.
Attitude was the thing.
Yeah, has created the whole.
Then he was like,
so-called
okay,
magic,
not
basically.
a big deal, not a big deal. I'm like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the attitude.
Yeah.
My fighting and trying to convince him, and versus my basically admitting that I'm weak
Wow.
and that I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Vilas.
I find so interesting because so what I understood is that while you were addicted, you also had the attitude of I am weak and I need this for help, right? And then after your addiction stopped, it sounds like you came with him. Yeah, you had the same thought of I am weak, I cannot work without it. But in the first case, he said, no, you're strong. You can actually do it without it. You can give up the caffeine. And then in the second case, he saw that actually now you really need it, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. It's true, because the arguments I was giving to him was basically that I need it. That's true. Kind of. I mean, my mood was different. I don't know how to say it. Maybe it looks the same, but my mood was more like rajasic. It was more just like, listen to me, and I'm right. And even though I was using similar arguments, but it was even more subtle than the words I was saying. But my attitude was the fighting attitude, and I'm right, and here's why. And, I was very rajasic, And then the second time I came around, I was really humbled. I'm not saying I'm a humble person. I was flattened to the ground. I was like, I'm literally can't focus.
Defeated, no?
Defeated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like flattened like a pancake. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like, should I stop working and just sleep all day? Or, I can't even concentrate to write an email. Like, if you're not a woman in menopause and you haven't experienced this by somebody you can research menopause brain fog and see. It's crazy the stuff that happens with that. It really makes even writing a simple email. And I was trying to do a PhD, write a book, see all my clients, do other seva here. I mean, it's very difficult when your brain chemistry is changing. And I had not only any validation of it, I didn't even know what was happening. Literally what I thought up until that point is, menopause means you stop your period. That's all I thought. Okay, it's just going to happen. No, I had zero education about it. I've literally only learned about it in the past 3 months when I had a health issue related to that. And I've been educating myself and trying to take care of myself in a different way. So it's that's why I'm also trying to talk about it very openly, because I'm still learning how to navigate life as a 50-something-year-old woman going through menopause, or having actually completed it, Yeah, so I was like defeated, flattened, kind of helpless, and almost a little bit hopeless. Like, okay, my guru is saying I can't have caffeine, but I can't really function very well without it, and I still want to continue doing everything I've signed up for. Should I just stop doing all the services I've said I'm going to do, or I don't know what the other option is, I had tried different like herbs and things. It wasn't working for me. And I'm still figuring it out with some doctors. Right now this is the plan. And it could change as I learn more how to deal with everything that's gone on for me. Yes.
I found this one message here also very interesting. It came here on one of the last pages, that the spirituality is to become free from objects, and exactly, that we are not the slaves of objects, and becoming free from attachment. Is there something more that you would like to say about that?
What do you think it means? I just explained it, so I want to see if you understand, or why do you think that that's something new that we're discussing?
Okay. No, I don't think that's something new.
So relate it to what I said so far about that, do you think?
Yeah.
How does it relate?
So how it relates is that so what I learned from the story is that you showed how you first were not free, but you were attached to and dependent on caffeine for you to work normally, to function normally, and that you learned that actually you don't need it, and your body doesn't need it, and you can do everything without it. But then as your body changed, you realized that actually this is a medicine that's working for you, and therefore you started taking it again. And then also I understood that in the beginning, while you were addicted to it, then you tried to convince Babaji of that it is good for you and that you need it, and he tried to teach you that no, actually you can be free from it, and and in that way help you learn about the ahankara, that as a disciple it is difficult to give up our attachments and follow and have trust and follow the Guru.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the relation I saw here.
Good.
Yeah.
It's about the mood.
Yeah.
It's really about the mood. Spirituality is about your mood of surrender to your Guru.
And then
if you're trying to convince him of your way, that's why I'm saying it's not about the caffeine or the apple. It's about the mood, It was actually the same scenario. It's not that when he was trying to tell me, I don't need it, it wasn't even that I don't need it. It was the mood that I'm trying to convince him that I do need it, and I'm not listening to him. Because I was in perimenopause then. I did need it, actually. That's why it was so hard for me, because my hormones were tanking, and I was trying to have no caffeine, which I did, because he said to do it. But it was very hard for me. But I was trying to listen to what he said and follow, And that whole scenario may not happen if I wasn't fighting him so adamantly. That was the problem, my attitude, the bhav, That's the spiritual part, is if you just surrender to the Guru and listen to what his exact instruction is. And in fact, if I was really surrendered to him, he wouldn't have had to say that to me. He would have just passively made that one joke, and I would have been like, okay, he means don't do it. Oops, he's right. But instead, I have to first drink it in his face, explain to him, fight with him, argue. A whole chapter. And that was like the, summary points of what happened, So that was the wrong mood. Even though what the body needed that whole time was actually the caffeine, which is very interesting. That's why it's kind of confusing. That's why when you tease out and it's so, to me, very interesting timing of reading this when that's what he's teaching in class too. It's about the mood towards the object, not the object itself. And so I think he saw when my mood switched to being more humble and just defeated and flattened, he was like, okay, she actually needs it. I'm not trying to convince. I'm not trying to fight with him. I'm not trying to... So it's subtle.
And I
Good,
really-
Vilas. Good
sorry.
question. Yeah.
And I really like, this point of that you said that he said is really not about the caffeine.
Yeah.
And I found it very powerful.
Yeah.
And one thing that you said I found very remarkable is that now you're drinking it and you don't feel bad.
No.
And I really like that.
Yeah. Because once I started drinking it again, I felt so much better, like mentally. But then I told him, I said, but I feel bad I'm doing it because you don't want me to. And he's like, forget about that. You should have no guilt. That is what you need to function. Your body's a machine. So for your body, given whatever's happening in your body right now, that is what you need. And just forget it. Just do it. And I'm like, okay. And that also gave me relief. Because first I was doing it, and I'm like, I really shouldn't. I better stop it on this point. But I have multiple doctors I'm working with, and they're all saying the same thing. Different doctors, and they're suggesting it. So I'm like, all right, just forget it. Like, certain people need that at a certain time in their life, and I'm one of those people. My mind feels like it's full of cotton, if not. So it's also very humbling to live in a body and realize I'm not that, strong. And also this idea, like especially in the path of Bhakti Yoga, that we have to be, harsh to ourselves. And Babaji doesn't support that. He's like, your body's a machine, and you have to take care of that. And if that's what you need, just do it. And you should not be having any guilt. Just continue with your seva peacefully, and it's okay. It's very interesting, But if I had been too proud, I either would have done it and lied, not done it and been angry at him about that or something, or it would have come out in some weird way, But when it came out clean like that, then he was clean back and said, okay. It wasn't a big discussion. Want to say something, Kamala?
I found it very important lesson to learn, and also see the aspect of finally to accept what Guru is saying and humble yourself in a way that, okay, I need it, but I'm ready. If you say no, I will continue.
Yeah.
If you say yes, I will take it. Depends. I depend on you.
Yeah.
And then Babaji, of course, he doesn't want to harm anybody,
No.
And he's so kind and open.
Yeah.
And once he saw that you were surrendered, basically, this is the word. There was not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's very, very sweet, actually. Very nice.
Once he saw that my hankar was like,
Mm-hmm.
the mood had changed, then he said, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vilas. Thank you. Come on.
I'm sorry if this is opening too much of a topic, but if you still have 1 minute,
Yeah.
I would be very interested in hearing what is the difference between an attachment, an unnecessary attachment, an addiction, and something that I need. Like, are there some points you could give for introspection? Because now after reading the chapter, now I want to see, okay, what are my addictions, right? What are the things I'm rationalizing? Is there anything you could, some prompt or idea how to see?
Yeah, addiction is something that you have, you're getting a lot of pleasure out of. You're getting a high from, you're getting a lot of pleasure. It's like an added thing. You don't need it. You don't need, you do eventually, if you're addicted to something, you do eventually need it. But you can even be addicted to a toxic relationship. You can obviously be addicted to the more obvious things like drugs and alcohol, caffeine, versus something that you need it to function. And that's a very blurry line, because it's like, well, wait a minute, but I need drugs to function, or I need caffeine to function, So it's not so easy. I would try to introspect on just anything that you think that you're using to change your mood. If you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling anxious, and you're using something to avoid a feeling. That's how I would look at addiction. That's how I define it, actually. When I worked at an addiction treatment center, that's how I would also teach the people who I was working with, Because as usual, we get out the feelings wheel, even at the addiction treatment center. When you were doing that drug, what were you trying to avoid? And of course, there's a lot of trauma they're trying to avoid. So the thing that they were taking was masking the feeling. versus something you need. Like for me, it's not like I'm so fill in the blank feeling word that I need this caffeine. I mean, I feel like I can't focus. I have like cotton in my brain, you know, or something. I don't know how to describe it. Brain fog is what they call it. So I have to take that just like maybe a diabetic would need to take an insulin shot or something. I have to take it to focus, but I'm not avoiding some feeling and getting a high from it. Whereas actually before I was. When I was first using it, before I hit the perimenopause, in my young jet-setting corporate days, I was like, woo! It would just made me feel like on top of the world, and it made my ahankara feel really big, and like I was awesome, and what's the word? Just big, you know, and great and wonderful. When I was in the corporate America, I would use it for that, you know. I would have on my little business outfit and get my Starbucks and be like, I'm so cool. It was a whole thing. Now it's not like that, you know. So I'm using it to just have a baseline mental state versus enjoying and feeling great. I don't know if that helps. That's kind of, okay. Good. Thank you guys very much. Haribo. See you next week.